illegal, it's unethical, and I think the bar will have something to say about that. So I'll file a bar complaint this afternoon. I will ask the county to appoint me a actual attorney that will then go in here and process this correctly. You know, to talk about this huge amount of cost, there is no additional cost. The printing's the same, the mailing's the same, the processing's the same. So you can't let your democracy be peeled away by someone who wants to hide in the shadows. It's not the way you do it.
And if the county doesn't appoint an attorney for you?
Then I will hire one personally and I will sue the county to pay for it. This is important enough to go to war for it.
Why is it so important?
It's democracy. It's what I fight for. It gets on a ballot, people vote for it. That's the way it works.
What about the judge's comments about,
That's his opinion. I do not agree. I think the people get to decide. When judges decide, when people hiding in the shadows decide, I think it's a bad thing. They really need to let the people vote on it. I'm not saying it'll pass. I'm not even saying it's legal if it does pass. The fact is, they got the signatures, they did the process, it deserves to be on the ballot. It is the American way.
And then your point about people operating in the shadows, I mean, that was, in a sense, just reconciled today with the judge's order that
Right.
she has to reveal her name now, that her address,
Or
her
she'll drop,
phone number.
or she'll drop the
like-
suit, right. They shouldn't have her, they should not have her address, they shouldn't have her phone number. I mean, obviously, he ruled that correctly. So I have no complaint with that part. I mean, she needs to have some sort of anonymity, but if you look at the filing, it wasn't written by a layman. It was written either with AI doing a really good job or by an attorney. So there is someone they're working with. Maybe they should have had him come to court and represent her. Then she could have, well, they probably still wouldn't let her remain anonymous because that's just not the way we do it in America. It's the same thing if you don't let people vote, you don't let people file things anonymously because, that's kind of what happened to the internet. Well, the internet got bad because everybody could be anonymous and they could say all the crazy, stupid things they want to say and they're not held accountable.
So it sounds like you agree with the first ruling to reveal her name.
Yes.
You agree with the second ruling to shield her address
Absolutely.
and her employer.
Absolutely.
And you disagree with the ruling to temporarily stop the election office from taking
He wasn't
any further
presented
action.
anything to work with.
Right.
We should have been able to get up there and tell what actually is going on, the fact that there is no huge cost, As far as is it legal or not? Well, if the SAVE Act passed, most of it's already legal. So they're kind of like putting the cart in front of the horse. Let it play out, let people vote on it. There is no additional cost. It doesn't really matter. It's just someone jumping in front of democracy. And that's never what you want. Because what's the next one? The next thing comes along and somebody else doesn't like it. So they're going to block it off the ballot. The ballot is the people's way of actually addressing things. And the whole measure and referendum part, that is the most important part because that comes right from the people. That's not legislatures, that's not backroom deals. That's people going out and getting 20,000 signatures.
You said this is someone stepping in front of democracy, but would you agree that it is part of democracy to present legal challenges?
I don't like the preemptive challenge. I would not allow it.
Okay.
I think it's completely wrong to have any party step in front of the vote of the people. So it is legal to have it. I wouldn't do it.
I see. Okay. And so it sounds like right now there's just a temporary hold. You can't currently
Can't do
expend
it.
any more funds.
Well, technically do anything, but the problem is that they've got the date out. So once I get the attorney come in, they've got the date out there. It's too far out. It's going to be past our mailing, which means we can't print.
So this
Which
will
means there's
affect
going to be
your
a
ability.
lot of cost to the county if it gets overturned because we have to print a whole new ballot. We'll almost have to hold it as a second election.
What's your printing date? Like, what are these deadlines? Can you share?
Usually,
those with us?
we have a June election, which means the month before is when it starts. We got 30 days before.
Right.
Okay? 30 days before that, you have to have your stuff in for printing. So you have to have your ballot prepared. You have to have your everything organized. And it doesn't really change any of the organization part. I mean, all the polls will still be there. The poll workers will still be had. Everybody will be ready to do the job. The difference will be if it's not on that ballot and then it gets ruled we have to put it on a ballot, we're going to have to print a whole new
I see. So like April
200,000
2nd would
things.
have
Yes.
been- So if there had been an attorney that was representing you personally rather than
Right.
the county, you would have been advocating for if there's going to be a
Absolutely.
hearing. Let's
And
do
I
it
asked
earlier.
them. I asked them to let me do that. I asked them just to let me represent myself. I mean, I'm not an attorney here. I'm in New York, but
Right.
I could have represented myself and simply, discounted this cost and all this. The judge had nothing to work with.
And that's what he
So-
said. He said,
And that's what he said. You have nothing to work with. You
Have you
sat there and you
cons-
booted it down the road.
yeah. Have you considered presenting for the public, what the cost would be? You said it's negligible.
Right. It
But-
doesn't add anything to the cost if you print it at the same time you print the rest.
I
Now, if
think
we have-
I've heard questions from the public about what exactly would the cost be? Would you consider outlining that for the public sometimes so
Sure.
that they would be able to grapple with that themselves?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as for additional costs, it just isn't there because we don't count them by hand, so it doesn't add anything. We flip them, but it's still just a piece of paper, right? You're just flipping front and back. So everybody can see everything. But as far as adding cost, there is none. There will be cost if we can't get that date moved up. Because then if the temporary gets taken away because it gets an actual argument, then, and it's at that date, we now have to print a whole new set of ballots. We have to pay extra to do that because, you have a rush job so we can mail it at the same time. If we don't get it and have to mail it out after, we have a whole new mailing. And since that mailing will be strictly a county thing, we're not going to get reimbursed by the state as easily as normal.
Okay.
And sometimes the state's kind of hard to get reimbursed on anyway, but, because they're always out of money.
And I'm still not clear
What do
on,
you think about the county not supporting a defense for you?
I think it's deplorable. I'm going to file a bar complaint because he's the one who advises them not to take an action. And then he comes in here and represents not taking an action. That's completely improper. I called the New York bar the other day to ask him if this occurred, because I wasn't sure he was going to actually boot it like this, even though he said he was. If this occurred, am I required to report it? And I was told absolutely.
And
That
how
is
do
a breach of ethics, and that's what we'll report.
How do you feel about the board not representing the 10,000 petitioners who signed this petition?
Well, the board is advised by Larmer. And he makes this big case, because his problem is, and this is his big problem with the board, is that he decides what he wants, and then he gets his legal documentation to push them that way, without them ever getting a second opinion. And that's a big problem. And I saw that when I asked him things. He tried to stop the actual process of videotaping the ballots. He sent me this big thing about, oh no, that's ballot images. You can't give ballot images to the public. Well, if you'd read the simple definitions, and I know he did, a ballot image is something that's built by a machine. The machines generate ballot images. So I sent him something back and said, not so, fella. That's not the way it works. This isn't a dress. That's not a ballot image. So I've never really had a lot of confidence in him. Actually, I have no confidence in him. And after this, I think the board should get rid of him.
Yeah.
Or at least get a second opinion. Get somebody who will give them the other side, because he's a one-sided attorney. I've had offices in Orlando, Dominican Republic, New York. I wouldn't hire him to sharpen pencils. Just my opinion.
What do you think about the judge excluding intervention by the proponents of this measure?
It was correct. It was too late. I mean, he's going to let him come in now, but he was correct. You got to get in there quicker. And I know he didn't know about it sooner. I didn't even know about it sooner. I wasn't told early either. So,
Is that
there's a
acceptable?
chance that intervention might be able to happen at the
Right.
April 10th hearing.
What
The
is
judge made
recourse
very
for the
clear.
people?
right, but we're going to try
Right.
and push that date up so we can get everything. Because I think the judge will consider the fact, I mean, he's got a tough docket, so it's tough for him to get things in there. But he'll consider the fact that, it's now going to double the cost of the election if we have to send out a single
Well,
election.
and I'm not clear, could you please be more specific if you can about your print deadlines?
Okay.
You said a lot of stuff. Well,
It's a
can you give me
month.
some dates?
It's a month before the opening of the polls, before we mail them out.
May 2nd.
Yes. So you got May 2nd, so that you got April 2nd. So that's basically our print deadline.
Is April 2nd.
Right. If we printed them ourselves, we would have more latitude, but we don't do that yet. So what we have is we have basically sent it off to Runback or some of the other people, and they have printing for half of California. So you got to get in there soon enough that they can actually do it, because they print it out and they mail it, and it's got to come to you in your mailbox by May 2nd. So-
Okay, so your point is, at this point, you're gonna be doing some extra work and extra money to print those ballots if it is allowed to be on the
If it
ballot.
goes back on the
Yeah.
ballot, and I think it eventually will, when someone's there to actually fight for it, but when it goes back on the ballot, if it's actually that late, we now have another election. It's gonna cost $1 million to have a second election, because we're gonna have to set everything up again. We're gonna have to do the whole process. We have to get all the polling places. We have to have all the people. Unless we can get that printed at the same time, or get it printed quickly enough to get it in that same envelope, even if it's on a second card, you've doubled your cost.
And your point or your opinion that the board should get rid of Joseph
Larmer, yes.
Larmer, they voted 4-1 to do what he's doing, though.
Yes, but
The
that's.
supervisors voted
But if you've
4-1.
ever talked to him, he only gives you his opinion. And then he has the little legal cases to back opinion. He doesn't stretch it out. He doesn't give you both sides. So he's an opinion attorney. That's why I would never hire him, because I want both sides. Because you're likely to go in there thinking that what he's telling you is correct. And then you find out later on that maybe another attorney who doesn't agree with him is going to kick his tail. And so that's a big issue. You can't have a blind attorney. So,
Mr. Curtis, what is the recourse for the people of Shasta County, the over 10,000 people who signed this petition?
well, right now you don't have any. If the judge blocks it, you could recall him. You got 10,000 signatures, that's enough for a recall right there. You could write a letter to the board saying, get rid of Larmer and get somebody else. Or at least get someone who's gonna give you that second opinion. Because a lot of lawyers get stuck in their head that they're right, and so that's the way you go. So you need someone who will argue with. Anytime we had a big case, a federal case or something, we had our attorneys, one did one side, one did the other, so they could argue it out together. Because law is not black and white. Law is a lot of shades of gray. And so if you just go black and white, you've got a problem.
I've heard from a number of members of the public who are concerned that there is a full-time staff member, she's here today, Ms. Laura Hobbs, working in the election office. This was one of the 5 proponents behind the ballot measure, and of course, on the election
Right.
in June, the ballot measure will be there. So could you address concerns about conflict of interest or perceptions of impropriety when it comes?
Insulated away from actually being able to touch anything than everybody else. Everybody else is there sorting and counting and putting the numbers down and doing all the thing. Her job will be checking people in when they come in for early vote. And
So
at
she'll
night,
have
we'll
any
probably
role in
stick her
touching
at,
ballots,
at night, we'll
counting
stick her at
ballots?
we'll stick her at the, whatchamacallit, the tabulator. So she'll get, put them in, push the button. Because we don't let the other staff push the button. We have full-time staff that actually sits there and, does that.
Can you
and-
see why people would be concerned that a proponent behind a ballot measure is pushing the button?
No, they have to push the button. They're on camera. If she does something illegal, she's going to jail. You going to jail?
It's not like the former
Just check it.
elections where everything was,
Yeah, everything to be
Hidden.
seen. You're on jail from 4 cameras
and there was no cameras
in the building,
around.
and you're on camera putting it in there. So you're going to see it come from station 1 to station 2, push the button, station 3. And those 2 people will be extra help people.
Mr. Curtis, do you think that the people's constitutional rights were violated today in this courtroom?
No, I don't like the pre-ballot law that says, you can challenge things and keep it from the voters. I don't like that. I think it's improper. I would like to see it gotten rid of, but it is legal. Constitutionally, it's going to have to follow the process. So judge is doing his thing. We just have to get him to shove that date up so it doesn't cost the county and have this Jane Doe cost the county $1 million. Because that's what it'll cost us. So we have to make sure that, we get the date up there. And he doesn't know the dates, so he didn't pick it on purpose, right? He
So
didn't know what
what's
the date
the
is.
current cost for the June 2nd election slated to be?
The June 2nd?
Yeah.
All elections in Shasta County cost about $1 million.